Good morning. A few years ago, I was actually interviewing a girl for admission to a management institute, and we had a quite a good discussion. And after that, when I asked her, "What do you think about it?" she said, "I'm a very ordinary student, and I don't think I will be able to make it." So I said, "What do you mean by ordinary?" She was saying that she doesn't have very high grades. Doesn't have something like she's not a national level swimmer. I said, "Do you think that this is what is the definition of extraordinary?" The thing is, ordinary plus ordinary, that makes us all extraordinary. And we are all extraordinary in some sense. And the thing is, we fail to look at some of the ordinary things which we think as ordinary. And that's why, in this mad rush to become extraordinary, we are in a very difficult situation today. We fail to look at the sun, how it rises every day, but there's a joy in looking at it. These are small, small things, these are fundamental things, but the fact is we have forgotten to look at these small things which actually give us the most happiness in our lives. My father actually suffered from this disease called dementia, and let me just explain you what it means. It's actually a disease which is a brain degeneration disease. What happens is the patient starts forgetting the short-term memory and remembers the long-term memory. What I'm trying to say is, in this kind of a disease, what happens is, the thing is, I was his primary caregiver, but the fact that I was his son, he was not able to recognize. But he would look at the photographs and would say, "This is my son." We used to share a lot of these memories of my early childhood, but he was not able to look at me that I was his son. What I'm trying to say is, for any kind of patient who's suffering from dementia, these are too complex things. Life has to be very simple for them because the brain starts degenerating. So why I'm trying to say is that gave me a cue that there are small things, looking at the birds, looking at the sun, looking at how we follow a routine. I think that gave me to look at that while we think about extraordinary, we think that a lot of money is something extraordinary, maybe. But if you look at it, when you look at a balanced kind of a life, I think that gives you the maximum happiness. And while when we look about beyond horizons, it's about these small, small things, is this fundamental things, this foundation things, which actually make us a much better individual. Okay, I went to a school in West Bengal. Now, let me look at the way the school, this is known as Ramakrishna Mission Vidyalaya in Narendrapur. I went to a boarding school at the age of 10, and from there we had people from various backgrounds, people from various strata of society, all were given the same treatment. And it was like a melting point where we started growing together. We used to start our day with the lights on and end up with the lights. And in course of that we went to a school, we stayed in a hostel, we had our own prayers, we went for a physical education, we used to serve our own batchmates. And if you look at it, when the time we got to study was only about 2 3 hours afterwards. The fact it was that within your education, within your classes, you should be able to imbibe. So why I'm trying to talk about this is, if you look at these fundamental school, it's on the basis of character building, man making. It was all a very ordinary kind of things, like a routine, mundane things, but we're doing. But if you look at the background of this school boasts of some of the highest number of IITians, highest number of medical students, highest numbers of PhD. While why this was happened? Because while we looked at all these ordinary things, but we saw a meaning in all this, and that gave us something that it was more of a balanced life which we are trying to lead. Now, let's look at it. I have spent about 25 years with various organizations, but maybe I will pick up one. Again, not that this firm was better than the others, but this is what I found to be fundamental true. So I joined Infosys during its initial years, and at that time we were just nobody. I still remember it was very difficult to convince somebody that we will take your work 8,000 miles away and then do it. So it was very difficult to convince. And if you look at the pedigree of this organization, of course, the 7 founders, they came from various backgrounds, but we did not have people who had maybe from an IIT or from an IIM, because we thought that not that we did not want to recruit them, but we always believed that we should have a unit which will gel together. Let's look at a human body. You can have the best hands, you can have the best set of eyes, you can best have the best set of legs, but if there is no coordination, that doesn't result in a fantastic body. So this firm, what we looked at it, there was a zeal to do something, and rest is all history. So the fundamental ethos was we were there for a purpose. We had a purpose beyond life. We wanted to create something, and today, if you look at the organization, it's doing very well, and over the years, it has really grown. So fundamentally, as I said, ordinary people, we did ordinary things, but the results were extraordinary. Now, let's look at it. A lot of us, I know, we are getting into something in our career. We are running after fame, money. There's nothing wrong in that. But in this thing, we have stopped actually living life. There are small hobbies, maybe, which we used to do in schools. And if you think back, I think that's where the fundamental thing lies. If you look at most of the successful people in the world, they have spent some time doing some kind of either a physical activity or a hobby, because there is so much of stress, so much of anxiety in the world. And as I speak, there are about 64 conflict zones in this world right now. We are not in the greatest times. But what it can do is, if we can balance our life, there are 24 hours in a day. Now, a lot of people, you see that they start running marathons. But what I'm saying that speak to any one of them. Most of them will be very ordinary people. But they picked it up as a hobby, and the way they will explain it, that when you have that, reach that end line, it's a 24 kilometer or a 42 kilometer. There is something called a runner's high. Maybe it's somebody who has not experienced it. It's very difficult to explain it, but the kind of dopamine it actually releases, the kind of stress buster, I think that's where it fundamentally it goes. I do a lot of trekking. I have been to Everest Base Camp, and a lot of people said that, why did you do that? But that trip changed my life. I looked at the Sherpa community. They live very ordinary lives. They have bare necessities. But if you look back, they are one of the happiest people in the world. So that was a lesson for me, that maybe I will not look at material things in life. There are a lot of things beyond that. So it's very important to balance our life with the ordinary things. But when you circle back, I think it's very interesting to know that people who have really balanced their lives rather than chasing a designation or a thing that doesn't work. Because a lot of people go through some of these conditions when they retire. The company doesn't is not with them anymore. The designation doesn't exist. Do you still have an identity? If you have really done that, I think you have lived a fantastic life. Now, I wanted to speak very proudly about this. This is a school which is based in Hyderabad. Now, why I am talking about this is, we started this school 20 years ago, and where we are trying to solve a societal problem. Now, there was this community where the crime rate was very high. The parents, where there was always domestic violence, and because of that, these kids who never went to school, they were actually getting into some very bad company. So we had an option. What do? We actually try to give them more money or try to give something else. But we thought that, why don't we set up something so that we can make them engaged? So, and as I said, there are always good people in this world. The community actually raised a lot of funds, and today the school has been running for 20 years, and for all these years, we have never faced a fund crisis, because money was never a problem. So we did not have teachers. So initial years, what we did is, we were together, we were teaching it. But today, the school boasts of people who have come out of the school as are now doctors. There are people who have come out of that school, have come back as teachers. And what I was saying is this was an experiment in societal engineering where we tried to make people engaged. And this school is totally fundamentally driven by the students. They have an own parliament which they run it. There is no junk food in the school, and Telangana government has actually made it a model school. Today, the school doesn't need me because it is in an autopilot mode. It can run on its own. We have tied up with Teach for India. There are certain organizations which have been helping us. But when I look back, I think this was an experiment which we tried. We tried to push it to a certain extent, and this has worked very well for us. This is another, I'm just talking about a hospital. Again, it's in Kukatpalli in Hyderabad. So why it is so important? Now, this is a very unique hospital. When you look at any child, for whatever reason, there are children who are born out of physical deformities. And for the society, anybody with a deformed ear or a lip or an eye, it puts a lot of stress because they are bullied, because they are bullied in school. Society doesn't look at them very favorably. And there are hospitals which actually do these kind of surgeries and charge a lot of money. So what we thought it, we were seeing a lot of incidents of suicide among the kids who were born with physical disorder. So as I said, there are always people, good people. There was somebody who donated us some land. There are doctors who were willing to help us. And this hospital, we don't charge anything. If somebody wants to pay us, and the doctor, Dr. Bharatandu Swain, who is the front runner of this, he left a fledgling career in US, a fantastic surgeon. He decided to start this, and today the hospital is about 15 years old. We have made a difference, and what I have seen is, of course, I'm not a doctor, but what I'm trying to help them is, I look at the the marketing concepts. I actually do the marketing for them. What it looks as is, when I see some of these kids, when they come back, they see the doctor as somebody like God. Yes, he is God. But what was the need for somebody to leave a very fledgling career in US, come back and open this hospital? And as I was saying, there was no dearth of funds. And the thing is, at the end of the day, when you look back, what kind of difference have you made this society? I think that's what matters. So to sum it up, if I look back, yes, we all want success, we all want money, there's nothing wrong in it. But fundamentally, we are also living in a society. We are living in a dangerous times. But it's very important that everyone has something to offer. Everybody is extraordinary. But because in this mad rush of trying to do something which we are not, in this mad rush of trying to, it's a dog eat dog syndrome, in a mad rush of a zero sum game where I gain at the expense of somebody, I think we have forgotten some of these fundamental aspects of humanity. So maybe this gives me an opportunity to actually remind us that when we talk about ordinary, it's not something which is opposite of extraordinary. It's its foundation, and ordinary plus ordinary, that is extraordinary. So yes, there are generations which are going on as we grapple with so much war in this world, as we grapple with the climate crisis. It's high time we take a pause. We go back to the fundamentals. We look at nature. We don't try to mess up with nature. I think this is where it's very important that if we try to live within the boundaries of nature, if we try to be a better human being, if we try to make a difference to society, and the fact that I'm speaking at a platform where in a college which has actually impacted the lots of lives, I think we all will be extraordinary. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. It was a privilege and honor to be here. Thank you.